Good evening, Knicks fans. This is Luke here from Knicks Cast. Back at you with another live stream. Now, this isn't a game stream. The Knicks are not playing tonight. Obviously, tomorrow they play the Brooklyn Nets. But I had to come on here, and it's not just me. I'll have Donald on in a few minutes. I just want to give my opening monologue. It wouldn't be fair for him to just sit and watch me give my opening monologue. And obviously, he'll have his chance to talk too, and we'll go through all the different subjects regarding this Knicks free fall. But I just want to say real quick, thank you guys for the support. If you guys haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you know when I go live or drop a new video. Move this to the left a little bit. But here we go. This Knicks free fall is nothing like I've ever seen before. This is such, and sometimes I just don't know where to begin. The Knicks let's start with December, right? December, Knicks are riding high. Chemistry is an all-time high. They're playing solid defense. The offense is moving the ball like hell. We're winning all these games against high-ranked opponents, right? We beat the Spurs in the Cup. We beat the Magic. We beat all these different teams. Things are at all-time high. Then we start to taper off just a little bit after the Cup. We blew a lead to Atlanta, but we came back and won. But then I think there was another game which we blew a lead but came back and won as well. But then you have a game like the Spurs game, right? New Year's Eve, about to head into the new year, new calendar year, 2026. Knicks up 17 at halftime, basically continuing the same type of ball that they've been playing the entire month of December. Everybody's moving the ball. They're playing at least okay defense. And then I don't know what it is. I don't think Donald's going to know what it is. Something just happens at halftime. We don't know what it was because there's no source reporting out there saying that anything happened at halftime. We can only take a guess. But the switch flips. The Knicks blow a 17-point lead, and this starts a massive free fall for the New York Knicks. They lose against the Spurs. They lose. Let's look at the schedule, guys. Let's look at the Knicks schedule and see what they've done since the end of last year, I should say, into the new year, right? They lose against the Spurs. They lose against the Hawks with no Trae Young. They lose against the Sixers. It was a back-to-back because I remember we did the Hawks game. They get ass-canned by Detroit. We did that game, and I ranted about it. Okay, they beat the Clippers at home. They lose on the road to Phoenix, a very winnable game. They beat Portland. Okay, you could argue that game should have been a blowout. Not that Portland's a bad team necessarily, but we had the talent to at least win by 10 points or more, or 15, something like that, whatever. They lose. What pissed me off, and now you're going to see the back-to-back games, or at least hear them at least, because I don't have the screen shared. They lose back-to-back. Sacramento, the worst team in the NBA, or one of the worst defensive team, one of the worst offensive teams, who their offense is surrounded, or I should say based around the mid-range shot. They don't shoot a lot of three-pointers, guaranteed. Their spacing was trash. They sent out a lineup of Russell Westbrook, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Precious Achiuwa is the 4. I forgot the name of their center. He was a French guy, Renaud, I think his name is. Forgive me, Kings fans. At the 5. You had one spacing shooter out there in Zach LaVine. Yet the Knicks got absolutely toppled. I don't know. I'm going to look at it right here because I have the screen up on my end. The Kings, one of the worst. Right now they are 11th. They were 11-30 at the time, right? Their largest lead was 25. The Knicks shot 8 of 41 from 3. They shot 39% from the field. Mitchell Robinson was the only guy that was making things happening. But regardless, it was inexcusable. Brunson got hurt, I know, but that's not an excuse. Because you see other teams with injuries like Jason Tatum being out for most of the year with the Celtics. They're ahead of us in the standings. You have the Pistons, who had Jalen Duren hurt. They're still thriving in number 1 in the East as far as I'm concerned. And then you have the coup de grace, the Golden State Warriors game. Not only did the Knicks lose this game, they looked incredibly soft. I mentioned in my recent video what happened. Draymond Green trips up Karl-Anthony Towns, gets a flagrant foul. Deuce McBride is the only member of the team to say something to him. Maybe a little Voji. But the rest, la, 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 la. You have Mike Brown, who should be ashamed of himself for hugging and giggling with Draymond Green like it's a high school reunion. Like he's your best bud from high school, your long-lost friend that you haven't spoke to in like 20 years. That's inexcusable. And I will tell you why that's inexcusable in about a second. Rick Brunson's jiving up, whatever. Team looks soft, and the team is soft. And I'll be honest with you, I was way late to the curve last year in calling this team soft. So not only do they drop the game versus Golden State, they dropped the game against Phoenix. And then yesterday, you could argue, was another coup de grace because they got blown out by the Mavericks. It's going to say 17 points when you look at the total box score. I think the Knicks were down almost as much as 30. No Klay Thompson. There were several players, I think 7 players on the injury report that were hurt. Yet Cooper Flag destroyed the Knicks and any heart that they had left. Then maybe they made a run in the game. I don't know. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't watch it. I didn't have the heart to watch it. I was like, you know what? Let me catch in my sleep for the next day. I work it overnight, blah, 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 blah. Is this team really worth watching right now? There's so many questions around this team. And yes, I believe everybody's at blame for this. This goes to the players. This goes to the GM, president of basketball operations. He has a lot to answer for right now. And the head coach. The head coach, I think in some ways, is not maximizing the talent he has. I also don't think that he's communicating his message properly. Because I'll tell you this, right? Mike Brown went after Karl-Anthony Towns in the media a few times. And I'm not gonna sit here and say it wasn't justified. There was that game where the Knicks lost to the Timberwolves 115-104 on December 23rd. And Karl-Anthony Towns put up 40 points. But Mike Brown said, which was a fair point, yes, he put up 40 points, but he's got to stop fouling. He's got to stop with these dumb fouls or the stupid fouls, whatever, verbatim. But if you're going to call out your players, which is fair, I'm not against that. You also have to protect your players. You have to show that you have their back. That's where respect comes in. And a lot of people, according to Ramona Shelburne, I don't know how credible her sources are for ESPN, said a lot of people within the organization are not happy with Mike Brown and how he handled the whole Draymond thing, especially the hug and whatever. And it's funny because also as well, Karl-Anthony Towns' father gave Draymond a big hug. Whatever, not the point. But I shouldn't say my biggest issue. This is, as I said, multi-layered problem. Mike Brown is a part of the issue. Leon Rose is a huge part of the issue. But I will tell you this. I'm not a big hockey fan because I'm going to divert from the subject, but the point will remain central. The New York Rangers right now are one of the most mediocre teams in the NHL. They're probably looking to rebuild because the years of success that they've had, they never made the finals, the Stanley Cup finals once. Their peak was in 2 Eastern Conference Finals appearances, one versus the Florida Panthers and one versus the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple of years back. So what happened was they have a core of guys like Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, all those guys, right? They've been around since I want to say 2016, 2017, which I forgot the coach's name. Then they moved on to David Quinn. They weren't successful. They fired Quinn, who was more like a David Fizdale. Then they moved on to Gerard Gallant, who got them to the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Lightning. The next year, they lose in the first round versus the Devils. Artemi Panarin gets pissed off because he was called out publicly in a meeting by Gallant. Gallant gets axed. So then they hire Peter Laviolette. Laviolette takes the Rangers to an Eastern Conference Finals. Locker room's not happy the next year, fired the next year. So now they have Mike Sullivan from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Whether it's a hockey team or whatever, doesn't matter. The point is, if your core is getting multiple coaches fired or there's a problem with multiple coaches, that can only tell me one thing. Or two things it can. It can tell you that the coaches are probably poor communicators. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. But this core is soft. This core needs to be broken up. A lot of people are going to put the blame on Towns, and I completely agree. I am out on him. Done. Trade him. But you don't want to completely devalue him in the sense of, okay, you're getting very much little on return to your investment. Because the dude's making $53 million a year. He's your center, supposed to be stretch big, blah, 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 blah. He's an all-star caliber player at his peak. We all know that. But at things that presently stand, I don't know if the Knicks are going to make him a deal or not. I think it's in their best interest to, because even people that were for Karl Anthony Towns now are like, got to get this dude out of here. But I don't want people to draw the wrong conclusion and say, oh, it's all Karl Anthony Towns. Once he's traded, the team's going to be fine. I don't think it's that simple, because I said core. Karl Anthony Towns, yes, he's the mask of it. He's the I don't want to say scapegoat. He's the forefront of it because he makes the most money. A lot of the issues, considering he's soft and all these different things, the issues with Mike Brown because he never fully adjusted the system. Again, another thing I was late on, and Donald's going to tell me that he was early on it, which was fair. Him never adjusting to the system and coming out to the media earlier in the season saying, I'm having a difficult time. Nobody's having to sacrifice more than me. BS. Meanwhile, everybody else early in the season was succeeding. Whatever, not the point. But does Karl Anthony Towns getting traded make Mikal Bridges more aggressive to going to the basket? Does that make him a better basketball player? Does that all of a sudden level up? What about OG Anunoby? He's underperformed of late. His defense has been missing for about a month. Does that make Josh Hart better? Does that make Deuce McBride better? And what I'm saying here is you could trade Karl Anthony Towns, and I agree with that. But you're overlooking the rest of the core problems, which is obviously the softness, in the sense that Mikal Bridges is an issue. OG Anunoby is an issue. Guys who you once thought were core pieces are soft. And this is going to lead into my next point, which is, and it's going to be my final point before I land on Donald, because Donald's, I'm going to, in terms of basketball, I'm going to have him have an ISO for a little bit. I don't want, regardless of this team going through a mysterious free fall, I don't want fans to use revisionist history or take people seriously who are very disingenuous. I know I saw Frank Isola tweeting about Dolan and firing Tibbs and all that. Frank Isola was already disingenuous before the season because he's been very anti-Knicks and he was pro-Tibbs, all those different things, right? But also I don't want fans to be like, well, or I should say, let me rephrase that. I don't want fans to think just because one of the things we did was worse, the other thing we should have done was better. Let me give you an example. Firing Tibbs and hiring Mike Brown were not mutually exclusive. That means join together. Nobody was just going to hire we're going to hire Mike Brown and not do the rest of the interviews. The Knicks did interviews. Regardless of what you think of the process, it was very, just going to put it out there. The Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau for a reason, which was poor communication in the locker room. They got tired of him, whatever, needed a new messenger, which was fair. And they also, his schemes were archaic, and he raised the team's floor, which was perfectly fine. He got us to where he was, to where we should be. Contender status. He wasn't going to take us above. As Knicks fans, as a genuine Knicks fan, I appreciate what he's done, blah, 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 but he needed to go. That doesn't mean the Knicks should have hired Mike Brown or this, that, and the third. As I said, both are mutually exclusive or not mutually exclusive. Excuse me. The Knicks didn't have to hire Mike Brown, and I'm not pulling the plug on Mike Brown. There's people that are, but I'm not for right now. You could have hired a Tyler Jenkins or Jordan Ott or a Johnny Bryant, whoever. The decision wasn't limited to one person. The Knicks went array of just looking at interviews for coaches, whether it was you believe it was a sham or not. That decision is not mutually exclusive. The Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle thing wasn't mutually exclusive either, in my formal opinion. Now, Donald may disagree. We're allowed to disagree, of course. Karl Anthony Towns just happens to be so worse than Julius Randle. The Knicks bought in the talent upside, which is completely fair. Towns is a more talented player than Julius Randle. Towns is also more soft and is making way more money than he should. Julius Randle, he did have his issues in New York. I'm a very objective fan, and I will say I appreciated Julius Randle for being here. I just wasn't certain that he was going to be the guy to take us to the finals or championship land, the promised land, whatever you want to say. He had his flaws. He did look really good, though, after RJ Barrett was traded. And it was that whole month of January in 2024, which everybody likes to look back on because that was some real magical basketball. And I completely agree with that. But just because one is worse doesn't mean the other alternative was better. And this town, and as far as I know, I'm going to be the first, but first time publicly admit it. This trade's whatever happens with Minnesota is pretty much irrelevant now, because I think they lost. This team lost the Karl-Anthony Towns trade by what's going to seem like a mile. Because originally I was like, okay, I didn't like the trade at the time. Then I started buying into it. Then when Towns played well in the playoffs, I was like, okay, this could be a win for both sides. Starting the year, I said the same thing. Win-win for both sides. Now that it is completely turned on its head, I don't see where Minnesota could have such a failure or such a coup de grace, whatever you want to say, conflict with Julius Randle that it could be this bad is what the Knicks have with Karl-Anthony Towns. Let me tell you something right now. They obviously don't like Karl-Anthony Towns in the locker room, or at least he's not liked by some players. But I will say this to end off in a conclusion, because this team is broken. That doesn't mean you don't go to bat for him. I don't care if you like the guy or not. I don't care. You go to bat for the guy when it comes to the whole Draymond situation. They did the same shit last year with the whole Draymond comments about, I think it was Jordan Woods, Karl-Anthony Towns' fiance's friend passing away, family friend. You stick up for him. And right now, this team is broken. This team is soft. There's no togetherness. There's no chemistry, which is strange because they had chemistry a month ago. And everything has flipped on his head. And now I'm going to hand it off to Donald and let him isolate. So, Donald, how are you doing on Tuesday night? Obviously, I think it's actually Wednesday where you are, but regardless, Donald, I'm going to grab my tea. I'll obviously be back. I am going to let you cook.
Well, I mean, this all is about Karl-Anthony Towns and Mike Brown. This is how we've gotten to where we're at in terms of the chemistry and in terms of the locker room falling apart and in terms of the implosion within the locker room. And all of that stems from the feud between Karl-Anthony Towns and Mike Brown. So any questions, you can put that to rest. It is between those two. That is how we've gotten to that point. Well, I would say about 80% of what the problem is between those two. So this feud, really, I put most of this down to Towns. Make no mistake about it. Most of this is down to Karl-Anthony Towns. I just did an article on PFSN, so do check it out, where I broke it down step by step. And I says, to understand to get to where we are, it's important to follow the breadcrumbs back to training camp, right? Karl-Anthony Towns made it obvious from day one he wasn't bought into what Mike Brown was selling. Let's not forget, remember when he told the reporters, I don't know, when asked what his fit was in the offense. I contacted Luca and I says, this is a bad look. This is weird. I don't like this at all. And it only got worse from there. So after he was like, I don't know what is, in terms of what his fit was, he basically since then, he has loafed around. He's been incredibly inconsistent. He's had the least efficient season of his career. Awful numbers across the board for him, right? And it all culminated to the Pistons game, which I think really set the franchise back, because we did the stream and it was a litmus test. It was the Knicks and the Pistons. It was a litmus test. It was 1v2, and the Knicks got their doors blown off them. It was like 30-point loss. And how many baskets did Karl-Anthony Towns have in that game? 1. How many turnovers did he have in that game? 6. He had 6 times the turnovers to made baskets. That told you everything about Karl Anthony Towns' effort. I really felt that he actually sold the game in many ways. And at that time, it wasn't a popular take, but I was saying to myself, there is something seriously wrong with Karl Anthony Towns right now. He doesn't seem bought in. And then it was interesting because in that post game, he told Stephon Bondi, who me and Luca have interviewed in the past, by the way, so do check that out. I think it's in the Big Blue in the Bronx channel. But yeah, he told Stephon Bondi, I make the biggest sacrifice in the system. And I think back to that comment, and I'm thinking, do you? I mean, this is a system where everybody gets to eat if you share the ball correctly. This is not some crazy reimagining of a system. It's a system that stems from the Golden State Warriors. That's where Mike, more on that later. Well, trust me, but that's where it stems from. It's nothing outrageous. It's a free-flowing, movement-based offense about kicking it out. Well, drive and kick, all that stuff. It's a pretty simple system. It's nothing crazy. Sure, all it means is Karl Anthony Towns needs to distribute more than he's used to. And it means that he might need to get down and dirty in the paint a little bit more than he wants. Suck it up, Buttercup. So when he says, I make the biggest sacrifice, again, that rang alarm bells to me. So for me, I do think that the problems that have been happening with the Knicks, I think have been boiling under the surface right up through the NBA Cup, by the way. There's no way it could all happen in one half. There's no, against San Antonio. That's impossible. I think that Jalen Brunson, and I think that some really good individual performances, mostly from Jalen Brunson, won us the games that we needed to win, and then we got kind of hot, and it kept the whole Karl Anthony Towns thing from being a major conversation. It was only when Towns basically spat out the dummy and has been completely loafing around that a lot of this has been a problem. But this is a feud that has been going on between the head coach and Karl Anthony Towns, okay? Luckily, we were winning through most of it, so it wasn't that much of a big deal. It was when we started to lose. And then once we got blown out by the Pistons, I really think that it affected the locker room. I think the locker room lost belief. I think the locker room realized that they can't stop anybody. I think they realized they can't keep anybody in front of them. I think they also realized that they have a Karl Anthony Towns problem. And I think a lot of the leadership in the organization looked around and realized they have a leadership problem too. Because there was a lack of accountability after that game. And it's only gotten worse from that Pistons game. And that's where I look upon as when it all started to go completely horribly wrong. Because after the NBA Cup, we lost a couple of games. You could put it down to being just tired. It was a heck of a run, and they're probably a little tired. The energy that they put into that, it can wear you down. So we'll give them a break for a couple of those games. But once they face the Pistons and got their doors blown off, that's when you look and go, uh-oh, this is bad. I'm not quite sure if it's retrievable. And it hasn't been retrievable. But for me, this whole thing is about it started with the Pistons, and I think it's led up to the West Coast trip, which is the defining trip of the season. This West Coast trip has defined the relationship, and for me, has actually ended the relationship between Karl Anthony Towns and Mike Brown. And I think it's heading to a divorce. I'll be honest. I think it's heading to a divorce. It's very seriously bad. Okay, this is a serious problem. Now, I put most of this on Karl Anthony Towns, and when he gave up against the Sac Kings I gave up on him. What I would have done as head coach may not have been popular, but it probably would have helped the locker room. When Karl Anthony Towns sat down during the play, and make no mistake about it, he sat down during the play. He may or may not have fallen down, but he never got back up, and he wasn't injured, and there was no contact. He just sat down. He chilled. He might as well have got himself a pina colada, got a deck chair, and chilled under that Kings basket, watching the play in front of him for multiple possessions, by the way. And he never bothered to get up off his ass to start making a play. That was when, for me, I gave up on Karl Anthony Towns, and I will never forgive him as a Knicks fan for that. Because you not only gave up on your coach, you gave up on your teammates, and you gave up on yourself. And that was unacceptable, because I don't care what your relationship is with Mike Brown. I don't care if you don't like his system. I really don't. I don't care that you're upset that they fired Tom Thibodeau. I don't care. It's not your problem. You know what your problem is? Your problem is to play well, help your teammates, and win games. That's what you're doing. You should be representing the Knicks. That's what it's about. You should be representing the name on the front of your jersey. I don't give a whole hoot and crap what you think of Mike Brown. I don't care. You could hate him. Don't care. Do you think Tom Thibodeau cared what anybody thought of him? No. He went on and got on with his job. Get on with yours, Towns. But you are soft. You are a big baby. That's what you are. You're an enormous 7-foot baby. And that's the problem. You gave up. And too many are defending Karl Anthony Towns, and I've never will defend him for that. He sat down and gave up on the play, gave up on the game. Second half, didn't score a single point. Against the Kings, who led the league in points given up by centers. So he gave up. He didn't want it. Right? And the big baby that he is got called out by Karl Anthony Towns, by Mike Brown in the post game, where Mike Brown said, you gotta get up. It's pretty obvious. I mean, to be honest, Mike Brown didn't say anything awful or wrong. He said everything that anybody needed to say. He should have gotten up and he should have fought to get that rebound. You got to keep going. But he didn't. So at that point, when he sat down in that Kings game, I would have benched him. And I would have made him unavailable for future games. And then orchestrated a trade. Because you'd given up. It's about representing New York. It's about representing the Knicks. And you failed in your duties. You get paid $60 million a year. You failed in your duties. So for me, I'm done with him, and he has to be moved on. Now, I know that a lot of you guys are going to think, oh, this guy hates Karl Anthony Towns, and he's putting it all on him, and he's not putting anything on Mike Brown. Wrong. Because now we move forward 24 hours later, and this is on Mike Brown. This isn't on Karl Anthony Towns. And this is what I can report, is that I wrote an article, and Ramona Selborn did break the news that Knicks sources are very unhappy with Mike Brown for this. Mike Brown treated his return to the Golden State Warriors like it was a family reunion. It was the only way I can describe it. I have never seen anything so surreal in my entire life. I've been watching the Knicks for almost like 3 decades or more, and never in my entire life rooting for this Knicks team have I ever seen a Knicks head coach being so loved up with the opposition. I have never seen it. Never. And I've seen some bad coaching. I've seen some Fizdale. I've seen some awful coaching. I've seen Kurt Rambis. I've seen some horrendous coaching. And I've seen Fisher. And I've never seen a full-on loving like I saw with Mike Brown and the Golden State Warriors that day. And I think it hurt his standing in the locker room. He hugged Draymond Green during the game. Again, I've been watching the Knicks for over 3 decades, and I have never once seen my head coach loving so hard that he had to hug a player midway through a game. What are we doing here? I know you won 3 championships with that team, but you are not representing that team. You are not representing San Francisco. You're representing New York. What are you doing? For me, I think you lost the locker room at that point. Because who on earth are you standing up for? Because you sure as hell aren't standing up for the Knicks. And then when it got to the point where Karl Anthony Towns wrongly got tripped up by Draymond Green in a horribly, how would I even describe it? It was a bad thing that Draymond Green did.
It was like a shoestring tackle almost.
And yeah, and it was in failure for a better word, he tripped him up blatantly, and it was a flagrant foul. And Mike Brown defended Draymond Green after it. And I swear to God, he did. He didn't defend his player who got tripped up and almost injured. Brown defended Green and criticized Towns to reporters. He says, "Oh, Draymond, that's how he plays. I don't think it impacted us." Oh, I think it did. What I did feel was Cat picking up his 5th foul. That hurt us. There was no reason for you to say that. There's no reason for you to do that. Your player just got tripped up by the opposition. You should be standing up for your player. I don't care if you don't like that player. So I'm going to say the same thing as what I said to Towns. Mike Brown, I don't care if you don't like Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns got tripped up. He could have been injured. He was made a fool of by Draymond Green. And you're defending Draymond Green? You lose players that way. You lose locker rooms that way. That's how you do it. You might have possibly lost your job that way. Now, I'm not saying he will, and I hope he doesn't, because I do put most of this on Towns, I'll be honest. And I think that Mike Brown deserves a chance. But that is the behavior that he put on during that Warriors game is enough to get someone fired. Because you didn't stand up for your players. You didn't put your players in a winning position. And after your team got annihilated by the Warriors, instead of looking serious and pissed off and pulling your team off the court and talking to them afterwards, he went and paraded and had a full-on love-in with Steph Curry, with Draymond Green. How's it going, buddy? Oh, yeah, let's go. Go Warriors. It was a freaking disgrace. Seriously. You were representing New York. Now, I don't care what anyone thinks about Tom Thibodeau, right? But that guy always had us ready to win. Always. And it was always about the Knicks. It was never about having a love-in because, oh, wow, I'm getting to face my old team again. I can't wait to see my best pals from that team. Think Tom Thibodeau gave a shit? No. He didn't give a shit if he played the Bulls, the Timberwolves. Didn't care. It was about the Knicks. And it was about winning. And it was about putting his guys in a position to win every single day. He didn't care if you didn't like him. It was about winning. That's it. And I'm sorry Mike Brown failed in that duty. Mike Brown has not gotten the Knicks prepared to win enough. He's not set a tone. He's not set a standard. He's not set a winning standard. And all this is coming back to bite him in the ass. Because I do think that a lot of these players are looking, going, he doesn't have my back, so why should I give a shit? So, yeah, I do think that he has partially lost the locker room. I'm not saying he's completely lost the locker room. He's certainly lost Karl Anthony Towns. And for me, that relationship needs to be ended immediately, ASAP. at the deadline, before the deadline, preferably before the deadline, they need to move on from Karl Anthony Towns because this marriage ain't going to get solved. Towns has acted like a baby. He's not acting serious. He's never once treated this job seriously. And I'm sorry, you got to go. You got to go, brother. I mean, heck, you just look at that Mavericks game. He didn't take that game seriously. Karl Anthony Towns, how did he manage to kick Powell in the balls twice? Once from a three-point attempt. He did a reverse three. Powell was to the left of him, and he somehow managed to turn around and kick him in the balls while shooting for three. You are not taking your job seriously. You're acting like a clown. You're a big, soft clown, and I can't wait to get traded, bro. I cannot wait. I don't want to see you again after what you did against the Kings. So, long story short, that's where this all comes down to is Karl Anthony Towns versus Mike Brown, and this divorce needs to happen ASAP. Now, I am more on the side of Mike Brown because Brown has, by and large, tried to do the right thing, apart from the Warriors game, while as I don't think Towns has been at all serious in his role. And I got to go. You got to go. Now, as for the rest of this roster, the latest news from NBA Central that the players have not bought into Mike Brown's system. I am sick to death of hearing about this Knicks roster not buying into their head coach. I am sick to death of it. How many head coaches is it going to take? This is not a head coaching problem. I'm sorry, Tom Thibodeau was not the problem. Just like I don't think Mike Brown is the problem either. Neither of them may be the solution, but I can promise you with my whole heart, none of them are the problem. The problem lies within this roster. Leon Rose has made some brutal mistakes. Brutal. One of which was the trade that he lost with the Timberwolves. Trading Dante DiVincenzo has made me sick because he was a big part of everything good about the Knicks. The heart, the ferocity, the tenacity that he played, traded him away, undervalued him, made me sick. And his lack of taking responsibility for this awful trade where he's made us seriously worse with the Bridges trade, giving up 5 first-round picks. All those picks would have gone to Giannis, by the way, and we would have Giannis playing right now, by the way. So that was a costly trade, and the Towns trade's a disaster. So he has to own that as well. There's a lot of problems. I do think that a lot of this is a chemistry issue. I think that our two main stars, Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, are as soft as I've ever seen. They are soft players. They're not bad players. They're very talented players, incredibly talented players, but they're incredibly soft. And it's really hurt this roster because when are they going to be happy? When? Mikal Bridges basically got Tibbs fired. Now Cat is trying to get Mike Brown fired. At what point do they take responsibility and look at themselves? Now, final point. Apparently Jalen Brunson, God bless him, he's our one leader, has pulled this whole team into a players-only meeting, and he's telling them to stop focusing on coaching and start focusing on doing their jobs better. So, I mean, that's basically my message as well. But it needs to happen. You got to trade Karl Anthony Towns. It has to happen.
Well said on all points. You're right. The Knicks had a player-only meeting today. But as you remarked, Donald, and I said this in my opening monologue, when it takes two coaches, or at least two coaches that players can't even buy into, that's a problem.
Yep.
That is a problem. And yes, as I said earlier, I don't think at times Mike Brown has fully utilized the roster. And let me tell you this. Let me say this right now. The roster has talent, but that's not what it's always about. It's always about construction, fit, and role. I've personally said from day one that I would have had Deuce McBride in the starting lineup as the 2 guard. Brunson at the 1, OG at the 3, Bridges at the 3, OG at the 4, Towns at the 5. That would have mitigated, well, Deuce would have been your POA defender and 3-point shooter because they would have been guarding him. And Deuce obviously has been one of the only ones in this cold streak that has been on a tear, especially from 3-point land. He solves your point of attack defense. He solves your screen navigation, and that allows Mikal Bridges and OG and Anunoby to play on the wings and get as much steals as possible. That's why the Knicks were successful partly early in the season, because that lineup was used constantly. I wish Mike Brown would go back to that lineup, but whatever. Karl-Anthony Towns, and I'll say this: people like, oh well. The analytics people will say, they need to use the 4 shooters lineup a little bit more with Karl-Anthony Towns. Yes, I do agree with that. I understand that. That's why you traded for him, not to be a 4, but to be a 5. But here's the thing, though. Does that mitigate Karl-Anthony Towns' stupid fouls? And I've said this before. Does that mitigate his ability to, or I should say his ability or lack thereof, to drive and pick up turnovers, kick people in the balls, lose that ball handle when he's driving very rockily to the basket? Does that mitigate his bad habits or no? Because I don't think they do, in my opinion. Now, Towns will shoot with 3 more 3-pointers, sure. He's also been to the free throw line more this year, despite having less 3-point attempts. But I can't. This roles thing it's actually pretty annoying. It's actually pretty annoying. And I know people will say, well, it's Mike Brown, this, that, and the third. As I said, I referenced the Rangers. When you have 2 coaches, right, and the same core, Bridges, Towns, Brunson, OG, Hart, that is trying to find their roles and they're complaining about it, it's usually the core. It's usually the core because they are the constant. This is supposed to be a free-flowing offense, all these different things. And I know there's people that are out there actually suggesting, hey, you got to axe Mike Brown. You got to fire him. And they're basically saying, and I get the history aspect because the Knicks did this almost 30 years ago, where they're like, this is the same thing as Don Nelson. Don Nelson was the style of basketball that was played under Don Nelson with his brief tenure with the Knicks is different what Pat Riley did, his predecessor. Because the Pat Riley Knicks were grit and grind. Don Nelson was very much stick to his system, run and gun offense. Obviously, you saw that multiple teams. Golden State, twice, Dallas, on and on and on. But then he didn't sync with Patrick Ewing. He didn't sync with those Knicks. So you know what they did? He resigned. They hired Jeff Van Gundy, who was kind of the middleman, right? They went athletic. They brought more faster guys in. Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, Chris Childs, Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward was already there. But they went back to their defensive roots. That's the key. That's what some people, I guess, are pointing to. But if the Knicks were to do that, again, I'm not saying fire Mike Brown. That, to me, Donald, the equivalent of that 96 scenario would be going out like hiring Taylor Jenkins or Mike Malone. In that kind of
I like both coaches. And to be honest, if I had the choice of which coach was to be hired in this process, it would have been Malone.
Yeah, you were a big Malone fan.
Yeah, well, I like tough coaches. I'm old school, but I know the modern NBA doesn't. But it doesn't look like, let's be honest here, I don't think there's a head coach that's going to make this roster happy. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. This is a player problem, and this is a player-driven problem. Because at what point are they going to be happy with a head coach? So you had Tom Thibodeau, who preached good habits, worked them hard, was very accountable and tough. But yeah, he was a bit of an asshole, and he took no shit from anybody and didn't listen to anybody. He was stubborn, right? So now you've gone the other way, and now you've got a players coach in here who is Mr. Collaborative, right? And he's got his own system. It's a modern system, right? It's about sacrifice and moving the ball. You're not going to get hit yours too much, right? It's about everyone kind of getting a shot at helping the team
It's a
if you move the ball correctly.
I was
And
gonna say,
I'll be honest, they're not happy. They're still not happy. So when are they going to be happy? So if you're not happy with a player's coach, you're not happy with a freaking winning coach, which coach are you going to be happy with? The problem is within. And this makes me think about Leon Rose. Leon Rose got this spectacularly wrong. This last 18 months has been an unmitigated disaster. Right? Now, this doesn't mean that I want him fired. It doesn't mean that he's incompetent. It doesn't mean he is anything. I'm just saying that these past 18 months has been a living disaster because he's made every decision wrong from the looks of things. Because the extension to Mikal Bridges, the trade with Mikal Bridges, disastrous. Because it cost us Giannis. And Mikal Bridges doesn't look like he takes this too seriously either, right? And then you go Karl Anthony Towns. All you've basically gotten is a more expensive, less consistent, and much softer Julius Randle at $10 to $15 million per year more. That F's with your cap, and honestly, it's really hurt us. And you know what's quite funny, and it just shows how the Knicks are just kind of like in a circle right now. They're just kind of chasing their own tail. Randall would have been a much better fit for Mike Brown's system than Karl Anthony Towns when you think about it. Because what is Karl Anthony Towns doing right now? He's driving to the paint, and he's being asked to distribute and play make and create off the dribble at times. All the things that Karl Anthony Towns can't do, by the way. Julius Randle is very good at those things. He's very good at bully ball. Towns hates bully ball. And Julius Randle is very good at moving the ball, right? I know he over dribbles and he makes some boneheaded mistakes, but that's his game. He's a good passer of the ball, and he can create for his own shot, right? All those kind of things. Move the ball. He looked great under the new system of OG Anunoby and Brunson and Hart and and DiVincenzo and him. They all looked amazing together. It was a really good chemistry that bunch had. It was amazing chemistry. Beautiful, actually. And I think that Leon Rose undervalued the chemistry that team had, and he broke it up too fast. I don't think there was any real need to break it up that fast. He has to take responsibility for that. I think the OG extension, I think he paid too much for OG. I'm a big fan of OG, but and I much prefer OG to Towns, and I much prefer him to Mikal Bridges by a million miles, not close. But he is overpaid, right? And Mikal Bridges is seriously overpaid. And Karl Anthony Towns is the worst contract in the league as far as I'm concerned. It's a disastrous contract. It's only getting worse because he's going to get paid $60 million next year as opposed to 53 this year. If there's a time to trade him, it's this year, because you're going to have a hell of a time trying to trade that $60 million contract next year. So that's on Leon Rose because of his ties with CAA. Because he's big friends with Karl Anthony Towns. He was desperate for Karl Anthony Towns. He was trying for years to get Karl Anthony Towns. He got him, and this is what you get. I hated that trade, as you know. It's less to do with Julius Randle, and it's more the fact that I don't believe that he was that much of an improvement in Julius Randle, what Julius Randle's given you. There's not that much of a difference between the two players. I mean, obviously, Towns is a more talented player, but if you look at the bare statistics over the last few years, Randle's been the better player. Towns has been going down a little bit, and Randle has been on the spike. And it's continued with the Timberwolves. That was a mistake. It was a bad trade. And then when you pair it with losing someone who's a big heart of the rotation, DiVincenzo, who hit that big three, that clutch three, that was the best moment that me and Luca have had as a Knicks fan. You traded that. I don't think we've quite recovered from it. So Leon Rose has a lot to answer for. Then you look at the fact that he's tanked on the drafts. Every draft pick, apart from Kolek, has been a disaster. It's not looking good for him of late, over the past 18 months. It's been awful. And I have to be honest, I don't know how we're going to get out of this. This is a bad spot. We're in a terrible cap spot right now. And because of the new regulations, the NBA has made it a hell of a lot more difficult if you're in the second in that second threshold, that luxury tax threshold, second cap apron, tax apron. You're in a hell of a lot of trouble to get out of it. It's going to take a hell of a lot of work, hell of a lot of good decisions. And Leon Rose has not shown very many good decisions over the last 18 months to make me trust that he's going to make the right decisions to help us get us back on track. I am quite concerned.
I'm concerned too. And the thing is, you mentioned the thing about Carlton Towns, great point, in which he makes $60 million next year. Also, if you want to trade Mikal Bridges, the extension hits next year. So you might want to get, if you want to trade him, go right the hell ahead. If you want to, it's the ideal trade to trade him now. You make that decision right now. You say, hey, I don't care about Nova boys, no, nothing like that. This dude is soft. And the big thing is, yes, Towns was supposed to be an upgrade over Randall and all these different things. But the one thing, and everything that I mentioned when it comes to the 4 shooters lineup, all these different things, everything that's measured by analytics, what is not measured by analytics is toughness. What is not measured by analytics is chemistry. So that's what we've learned, that this team doesn't have a quote unquote asshole on them. They don't. There's no guy that's going to get up in the opponent's face. And I don't want to hear
DiVincenzo was
Isaiah Hartenstein. And I'll tell you this. I don't want to hear from, and I don't think there's any Knicks fans saying this. I could be wrong. They could be like, oh, well, Isaiah Hartenstein was the start of the downfall. Brother, you got to have a backup plan to Hartenstein.
Right.
Because let's be fair. It was the max that the Knicks could have offered for Hartenstein was 4 years, $72 million, $18 million a year. I'm pretty sure he's earning, 26, 27 AAV in terms of $1 million with the Thunder. You knew you were going to lose him. It was just about finding a backup plan. And let me tell you this right now. I understood the decision to trade Julius Randle because I was kind of uncertain where he was. I wasn't exactly opposed to trading him, but I wasn't exactly for trading him for either. And I'll tell you why, because I wasn't certain that he would be the championship player to get this team to the next level. And the reason I said that is because, number one, the past playoff history. The same thing I said about Towns, I'll say about Randall, the old Derek Jeter saying, which says that if you're playing, you're not injured. I applied that to Julius Randle's playoffs. I applied that to Towns this year because the whole ankle injury nonsense, regardless of the point.
No, I agree with your opening take, though, that it's not really anything to do with Randall. No. And just if you look at it as a trade, barefaced trade, Leon Rose completely lost that trade. And I don't think it was a smart trade. But no one here is going to debate that Julius Randle was going to be the guy that was going to win us a championship. Right. All of a sudden, I think he'd be a better fit to this roster than Towns. But again, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think the biggest takeaway is the fact that trade was a mistake and it should never have happened. Just like the Mikal Bridges trade was a mistake and it should never have happened. Now, whether you wanted to move on from Tom Thibodeau or not, again, I don't think any of us are going to debate that Tom Thibodeau was the guy that was going to win us a championship.
Right.
I don't think anyone was going to make that case. Is Mike Brown the guy? We don't know yet. Mike Brown has a lot of history in terms of being a coach that's won championships. He won 3 with the Warriors as an assistant. Now, you could probably say a lot of that was Steph Curry, right? Yeah. Let's be honest. So maybe it's less to do with him, but still, he is beloved as a coach. So maybe there's something there. Maybe. We don't know yet. I want to give him a chance. But what I would say is Did I agree with firing Tom Thibodeau right after your first conference finals in 25 years? No. I never thought that was the right call. I think he deserved one more year, and then you move on from him, because I think that Mike Brown was set up in a position where he can't win. And I think this is part of the problem. He's in a position where Mike Brown can't win. And here's a perfect example. We started off very well, right? But it was a very similar record to what we had the year before with Tom Thibodeau, right? So it wasn't like anything massively happened, right? And now that we've gone on this massive losing streak, it's the first losing streak we've ever had. This is the first serious losing streak we've had in this 5-year block that includes Tom Thibodeau. And now you're comparing him unfavorably to Tom Thibodeau. He's in a position where he can't win. Do you know what I'm saying? And the players will be thinking the same thing. The best example is Karl Anthony Towns. I really like Tom Thibodeau. Why did we get rid of Tom Thibodeau again? He keeps saying this shit. So if the players are debating it, Mike Brown can't win. And I think that it was a stupid call to do it. The best time to do it, and I also think that the media has not helped, because the media is waiting for Mike Brown to fail so they could be like, "Ha! Told you it was a mistake." They're waiting for this, and now they're happy. But that's why you had to wait a year. You had to give Tom Thibodeau 1 year, and it probably wouldn't have won us a championship. And then you could have moved on, going, "Hey, we gave him every opportunity. Hasn't worked out. Fresh start." But now, after an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, then firing him, you have to do better than an Eastern Conference Finals. There's no way in which you can say that you're doing a better job than Tom Thibodeau and finish worse than an Eastern Conference finalist. That's why he's in a position where he can't win. Even if he gets to an Eastern Conference Finals this year and loses, he can't win, because it's exactly the same as what Tom Thibodeau did that got him fired. That's what I'm saying. He's in a no-win position, and I feel a hell of a lot of sympathy for Mike Brown because of it.
You're basing it off results, and I get where you're coming from, Donald. I slightly disagree. I think, I understand where you're coming from, because Tibbs set the standard so high that, as you said, first conference finals in 25 years. So, like, Mike Brown has to hit this bar high. Yeah. But also, as well, there's people that would say, like, listen, this is not exactly about the regular season. Mike Brown brought up experimentation, all these different things, where the playoffs is where you're supposed to max out. You're supposed to max out in April, May, and June. But once again, as Donald, you mentioned, Tom Thibodeau already set a high bar. But I do think, honestly opinion, I do think it was the right time to move on. Now, whether you believe, as I said, in my open, I said they are not mutually exclusive. Firing Tom Thibodeau and hiring Mike Brown are two completely different decisions. You could have hired, and this is not my personal opinion, this is just what was out there, right? You could have hired Johnny Bryant. You could have hired Jordan Ott. You could have hired Mike Malone, Tyler Jenkins. You could go on. There was a list. And Donald, I know you were not a fan of how the Knicks carried out their coaching search. It was just kind of like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. But
their offseason is very similar to the Yankees offseason. They didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan. The coaching search was kind of scrambled, running around.
Yeah, and all that involved, and as I said, this is multiple facets of the organization. But as I said, the Knicks are a broken team. I don't know. I want to feed off one of your more recent points, Donald. What saves this team exactly? What saves this team at this very moment? Because I can't.
Let's do this, right?
Yeah.
Let's pretend that we're the GM, right?
Okay.
So if I'm the GM, if I walk in, I'm given the GM job today, I'm trading Karl Anthony Towns. I'm trading him. And I'm giving Mike Brown the rest of the season. I think it's very unfair to fire Mike Brown during the season. I don't think he deserves it. Now, I do think that Warriors thing was a disgrace, but I don't think it's enough that you fire him over. Also, because we did win an NBA Cup, and it was only a few weeks ago. So you can debate how important that cup is. It doesn't look that important right now, let's face it. But still, it was an achievement, and it is silverware, and it probably buys him a little bit of time. And I do think that system works offensively. Now, defensively, I have no freaking clue what his system is. But I also think that he is being sabotaged by Karl Anthony Towns. And I think if you actually had somebody that actually took his job seriously, I think you would see things a little bit better, because Josh Hart is an okay defender. He's not a great defender, but he's an okay one. Deuce is a good defender. Mikal Bridges is a good defender. Not as good as everyone says he is, but he can be a good defender. OG's a brilliant defender when he can be bothered. And Pact, arguably the best wing defender in the entire NBA when he can be bothered. It just depends on when he can be bothered. There are good defenders on this roster that can make up for Jalen Brunson not being able to defend the one. But I don't think you can make up for having two guys, your number one and your number five, refusing to play any defense whatsoever. I don't think you can survive that way. I haven't seen an NBA team that can survive that way, and I've yet to see it in my lifetime, and I don't think I ever will. That's why you gotta do something. You got to get rid of one or the other, and I'm hell not getting rid of Jalen Brunson. It's the best thing that's happened to the Knicks probably since Patrick Ewing or Carmelo Anthony, depending on what your viewpoint is. He's a genius player, right? So, right, he doesn't play defense. One guy out of your five that doesn't play defense, I'm not worried about that. Two guys out of five not playing any defense, I got a problem with. So I think you got to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns. I'm looking to trade him, and I'm giving Mike Brown the rest of the season. But the first thing that Mike Brown needs to do, and as a GM, I'd be sitting in on this meeting, I would have Mike Brown apologize to his team and say, I have not had your back enough, and that's on me. I just come up with an excuse like, you know what? I had a lot of close ties with the Warriors and the Kings, and I just lost track of where I am, right? But I'll never happen again, right? Little bit of accountability, apologize, and say, let's all get on the right page. Let's all get on the same page. Let's all fight together, right? Right? That's what I would do as a GM, because I do think Mike Brown needs to apologize for what he did against the Warriors, because that was disgraceful. And then you got to trade Towns, and you need to have a defender at center. You need to have someone that can actually play defense at center to help with Mitchell Robinson, and a versatile four. That's what I would do as GM. Luca, you're the GM. What do you do?
I'm kind of following your plan. I would get Mike Brown to apologize. And the thing is, with the apology, he's very much an open door coach, or he's described to be. So that's what you want to do to try to earn the good grace of the locker room. Towns is a lost cause. I as you said, there's no fixing that relationship. That ship has sailed. I'm trading Karl Anthony Towns. I know there's people sending out packages. I really like this one from Lee Escobedo, and actually I think we're going to look at an article of his that he posted, which brought up your most recent point, Donald, that Towns and Brunson simply do not fit because neither play defense. And Lee was a guy that me and Dylan had on in the season preview show, talking about how good this offense can be and things of all that nature. But this is like, if Lee admits something is wrong and says, hey, this can't happen, or this is not a fit, he's really tuned into his X's and O's, you should probably listen. So, a couple of trade suggestions. Now, you like this player better than I do. Trade suggestion one, this is from the Memphis Grizzlies. We're actually going to share the screen here. This is from Lee Escobedo. As I said, great friend of the channel. Let's go to X, remove this. Here we go. Trade example number one, Memphis Grizzlies. Knicks acquire Jaren Jackson Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Jalen Wells for Karl Anthony Towns, Tyler Kolek, Guerschon Yabusele, and Pacome Dadier. The figure is the Knicks give up $63 million to acquire $58.6 million, close to about $5 million in deficit, which is fine for the Knicks.
I love it, and it's actually very much coincides with the trade that I sent you, because I was on Spot Rack trade page, and I had accepted it was Jaren Jackson and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Didn't involve Wells. It was just straight up those two. And I had Towns and Yabusele. and that worked out just as well. And you could work out whatever draft compensation. I just wanted to focus on the players. I think it's a no-brainer. I think that Jaren Jackson offers you a good defender. Actually, at times, a very good defender. There are years. I think it was just last year that he was in the conversation as uh, one of the best defenders around. He's often looked at um, in that regard. He's versatile. He can shoot a little bit, and yeah, I think he can play the 4 and the 5, and he can defend. And I think that he would have um, a less. I think he's. I don't think he's soft, and I think he's going to have a less problematic relationship in the locker room. So I think that would be a good one. And Caldwell Pope, that's a good, solid guard that can shoot a little bit, and he's by no means a bad player. He's a pretty good role player, and that contract drops off pretty soon. So I think that's a no brainer. He's got a winning history in Caldwell Pope. So I think that's a great trade. And you get rid of Yabusele, you get rid of Towns, 2 major problems. I think Dadier as well. And hey, heck, if you can make it that you trade and acquire Wells too, fine. So I think that's a great trade, and I would do it 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, the thing with the Jackson, as I mentioned to you, is I think his fouls are a big problem. No question, he's a good defender. He won Defensive Player of the Year a few years ago, 2-time All-Star. KCP would be a really good guard next to Jalen Brunson. He takes up the point of attack. He allows OG and Mikal Bridges to be on the wings. That's a very ideal scenario. Jalen Wells, I have to look up what he's doing, but he's seen as a promising young player that the Knicks can probably bring off the bench. Let's see here, Jalen Wells. He's playing 41 games this season. He can play. He's a wing. He's 6'7", so the Knicks add a little bit of length and size. Donald disappeared for a quick second. He'll be back. All right. Donald is back. What I was saying with Donald was Jalen Wells is 6'7", so he adds length to the Knicks bench. He's played in about 41 games this year. Shooting guard, small forward this year. He shot 40% from the field, 33% from downtown, which is on 5 attempts. So I think you potentially get an ascending player. I think you do get a rotation player, though. I'd love to see his defensive numbers. Let's see what Crafted NBA thinks. I'm doing this off the phone because I don't want to load it up on my screen because the screen will lag and this, that, and so forth. Jalen Wells, Crafted NBA. And then he also has a Magic trade, which I think you would like, Donald, potentially. Let's see. Jalen Wells, positional size, not a lot to add on defense. Crafted defensive box plus minus is about a -0.7, but I think there's something to work with. It's a $2 million salary filler. I don't think you're going to regret. Yeah. He's not a major piece.
Yeah, exactly. The real centerpiece of the deal is JJJ. And listen, I don't want to, as much as I want Towns traded, I just don't want to give him up. So, like, we could bring up Stephon Bondi's trade. I don't think that's enough in a return for a Karl-Anthony Towns. I do think that Towns is worth more than Bondi's trade. So, Luca, do you want to bring up Bondi's trade suggestion?
Sure. I'm going to remove the screen right quick. And then when we go from Bondi's trade, we're going to go back to another Leo Escobedo trade. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. Meanwhile, while I pull that up, we'll check out this comment from Breakford. What's up? He says, Mike Brown took this job to run the offense. Karl-Anthony Towns is a good player sometimes. He plays hard. But at this point, we need a trade. Well said. Well said. Let me pull it up on Twitter. Because Bondi was – because I thought – I'm not going to say it was my original idea because it wasn't. Somebody brought this up. I was like, okay, that's – surmountable, but only if you add draft capital. So let's see if we can pull this up. This would be a trade with Portland. Let's see here. Scrolling.
It was involving Jeremy Grant.
Yes, Grant. This should tell us. It's in this article, but we're going to pull it up via this. Of course, it's a plus article. Give me 1 second, folks. I just want to make sure it has the right details. Damn it. S. Bondi NBA. Grant.
it in our chat.
Yeah. So essentially, all right, I think we got it right here. This is from Sleeper, basically reposting Stefan Bondi's article and basically letting the details. The reason I couldn't share it is because it was a plus article. Regardless, let's go back. A trade that the Knicks should consider regarding Karl-Anthony Towns is Towns and small salary fillers to the Blazers for Drew Holiday and Jeremy Grant. Based off personnel, I like this trade, but also you would have to add a bit more in terms of whether it's sweetener, in terms of draft compensation, which the Knicks could use, by the way. But Donald, you could sound off.
I just don't think that that's enough of a return. I mean, I like Drew Holiday. If you can package a better player than Jeremy Grant along with a Drew Holiday, then I would take it more seriously. I just don't think Jeremy Grant is enough. I mean, we're talking about an all-star caliber player in Towns that when he can be bothered to play, which isn't very often these days, he is an elite scoring big. So I think he needs to have that value attached. You can't just trade him for trading him's sake if you want to be a team that wants to take that next step. So you need to get quality return. Now it's unlikely, but I just don't want to do what, for instance, the Hawks just did by trading their franchise player and Trae Young for a bunch of fillers. I don't think that that's enough. You need to have a little bit more of a return. So as much as I love Bondi's writing, I don't agree with that particular trade. I much prefer the Jackson trade and the Magic trade, as we would discuss.
Yes, I'm going to replace this real quick. This is from, once again, Lee, great friend of the channel. He goes down, well, first off, he explains the Memphis and Knicks deal. Why Memphis does it, they trade from a defensive surplus to add a spacing 5 who unlocks their athletic wings downhill and punishes help coverage. Why the Knicks do it, Jaren Jackson Jr. fixes the defense at the rim and scheme level. KCP brings finals experience, a voice, and perimeter discipline. So with that being said, very well put by Lee, we have a Magic trade. Knicks trade for Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., and Goga Bitadze for Karl-Anthony Towns and Tyler Kolek. Down thoughts?
Love it. I love Wendell Carter. That's someone that you could actually build around at the 5. That's someone that takes his job seriously and is actually an ascending player. Goga is a good player too. And Jalen Suggs is an excellent ball handler. He killed the Knicks the last time we played the Magic. He destroyed us. He's a good player. He can shoot, he can defend, and he can move the ball. All the things that we need. Everyone in that return helps us.
For sure.
Every single person in that return helps us. That is as close to a no-brainer as it gets, in my opinion. I like Wendell Carter. I think he's someone that you can work with and build with. What do you feel about Wendell Carter?
I was about to say I thought you didn't like him because of what he did to Jalen Brunson and Landry Shamet. But regardless, he's a good basketball player. You put that aside. You get a rim protecting 5. He also shoots the 3 ball. But let me say this for the record. I mean, this goes.
He's an asshole. We need an asshole.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But let's look at Wendell Carter's stats. So for the year, he's averaging about 12.5 points per game, 40 games, about 7.5, close to 8 rebounds per game. Shoots 36% from the field. I'm sorry, 36% from downtown, 51% from the field. So the efficiency's fine. Free throw percentage is fine. Rebounds are okay, I guess. He averages about at least around 2 assists per game. But the thing is, you obviously add a rim protector. You add a backup 5, which is key, or somebody who could play the 4. I'm curious to see what the Knicks would do with Mitchell Robinson in that scenario.
Plus, he's an ascending player. He's going to get better. He's young.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to get better. He's young. And what I was going to say was, I think ever since the Knicks traded for him, I was for the trade at the time, the fruits really didn't bear because this player another player in the package got injured. The Knicks have really missed a guy like Quentin Grimes since his departure to be point of attack. Jalen Suggs, although may not be, I don't know if he's as good as a cutter as Grimes or explosive, but this dude is, you ever see him play physical defense against Brunson? Bet he's going to do that to every single opponent ever that he goes up against. His energy and his motor are constant. There's no inconsistency. Yes, you can be better at the three ball, but in terms of defensive and a secondary ball handler next to Jalen Brunson, bang, I'd do it in a second. But
Oh
regardless to the
yeah,
point,
hell
let's
yeah. Another player that I would consider for a trade from the Magic would be Jonathan Isaac. So, like if we
oh
tell,
yeah.
for instance, Goga's contract and put in Jonathan Isaac, I would do that in a heartbeat too. I'm a big Jonathan Isaac fan. That's someone who is a brilliant perimeter defender. He's got length. He's got all the intangibles. Uh, I like him. So, like, if you can get some really good defenders in here, I mean, Tom Thibodeau would be crying, literally
Yes.
crying. He's not having an opportunity to coach these type of players like Wendell Carter and Suggs and Jonathan Isaac or Goga, because they actually take their job seriously. And I think that roster that Tibbs had to coach last year was just not a Tibbs roster. It just wasn't. Half the roster didn't take their job seriously. So I would love to bring some defensive intangibles in there. I'm not sure if that really fits with a Mike Brown.
Yeah.
Having said that, good players that are definitely more what suits the Knicks. The Knicks need to have guys that are tough, that takes their job seriously, that play hard every day. And we've gone the finesse route, and that's not the Knicks. Finesse is for the Western Conference. For the blue-collar New York, you want tough mofos. You want the Dante DiVincenzo's. You want the dudes that were in the 90s teams, the Jeff Van Gundy teams, the Pat Riley teams. Those guys, I'm sorry. We, as fans, we appreciate toughness more than anything. And we've gone the other way with 7-foot doofuses that are softer than baby wipes, and it's not working. It's not working. So I'm sorry. I want some tough dudes in here, and the Magic helps because they've actually got some tough dudes. The only question is, would they actually make that trade?
Well, we're about to figure it out because Lee gives us some reasoning as why both teams do it. Number one, why Orlando does it. They already defend. What they need is half-court offense with shooting. Cat gives Paolo and Franz some space, gravity, and scoring versatility without touching their wings. The Knicks, as to why they do it, Suggs sets the tone defensively as the full-time point of attack defender. Wendell Carter Jr. and Goga bring size, rebounding, physicality. This deal raises the Knicks' playoff floor immediately. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And we talked about the intangibles. We talked about those things. And I would love the Suggs trade. As I said, the Knicks have been missing a proper point of attack defender since Quentin Grimes left. Now, I mean, ideally you would have Deuce McBride. But the thing is, you can even just because you have Jalen Suggs in the starting lineup as the two guard doesn't mean you can't have him running with the bench. Now, in that trade specifically, let me pull it up just in case. I just want to double check. I mean, you would trade away Kolek, but like you can rotate between ball handlers. You have that secondary ball handler. I mean, Kolek is on and off with the rotation right now, so he's not going to get a consistent role. But you have a bunch of pseudo ball handlers right now beside Jalen Brunson. There's no proper secondary guy. So if Jalen Suggs can split his minutes with the bench and the starting unit, I'm cool with that. And just as we mentioned, Suggs is a starting level player. Imagine him and Deuce in the backcourt. That would be insane.
Yeah, with Jalen Brunson,
You could go like 3 guard possibly. And the thing is, like, I know it's going to be unrealistic from what I'm about to say. Like, I think the Knicks' best pathway to a championship is being versatile as hell. They can play small, they can play quick, they can play long, they can play tough defense. Like, be as versatile as possible. And I don't think they have that right now.
No, and this is where Leon Rose is responsible because Mike Brown's system relies on athletic guys that are quick, that are unselfish, and can shoot the hell out of the basketball. And set screens, and it's constantly moving because you need to be athletic to suit a Mike Brown system, right? What they're doing is they're force feeding a roster, which is a half court roster, right? They're
Yes.
all of them are more comfortable in the half court, and you're asking them, and a lot of them are more comfortable in ISO, right? And then you're asking them to play this up tempo run and gun system, right, from the Golden State Warriors. It's ill suiting. And so you're kind of hurting Mike Brown because he's coaching guys that are unsuited to his system. And that's why you're getting players that are criticizing that they're not bought in because they don't know what their roles are. But then the funny thing is, Leon Rose also screwed his previous head coach, Tom Thibodeau, because Tom Thibodeau is one of the best defensive coaches in the NBA. He is. And they massacred his defensive schemes because Karl Anthony Towns was playing the fucking five in drop, and he destroyed Tom Thibodeau's system. So, if you're gonna have Tom Thibodeau as your coach, you need to have defensive guys, right? You just do, and you need to have a rim protecting center, right? Got rid of that. Hurt Tom Thibodeau, right? So you move on, right? You got Mike Brown. If you're gonna have a Mike Brown, you need to have an up-tempo athletic roster. We don't. So Leon Rose has completely goofed this whole thing up. So if he wants to have Mike Brown as his head coach moving forward, he needs to bring in guys that are athletic, that run up the court and do both jobs, that can defend in transition and also attack the basket, move the ball, and shoot the hell out of the basketball. Don't have any or enough of those guys. So that's what we need to bring in if you want Mike Brown to be your head coach.
Absolutely. And, even people like on Knicks Twitter were saying, hey, this is not a Mike Brown roster whatsoever. OG, like you look at it, it's like, I mean, what you said, there's certain players that prefer to play ISO. Like, I guess, Brunson can fit to any system. I'm not worried about him.
Me neither. But he is an ISO player.
Yeah, I think he could pass a little bit more, but obviously that's a very minor critique. He's obviously gotten us to where we were, regardless, not the point. Like, if Bridges is complaining about not ISOing, first of all, he's not an on-ball creator. I'm sorry. Neither is OG. He does not have a good handle. So miss me with that. But as this trade highlights, I would love this trade. But I guess I said, it could be unrealistic, whatever you want to say. I want the Knicks to have a team where, and you look at Sacramento, right? When Mike Brown had his days in Sacramento, Malik Monk, quick. Kevin Huerter, quick off the handoff. You look at those guys. Keegan Murray, versatile forward that could shoot and play defense.
Domantas Sabonis, that was the guy that he wants Towns to be.
Yes. But Towns didn't want to conform to that role for whatever reason, and still doesn't want to. And as we said earlier, this stream isn't about Towns just diagnosing the whole Knicks issues at all. It's like, what system do you want to play? What system do you want to play? Do you want to play the 4? Do you want to play the 5? Do you want to be the shooting big? Do you want to drive to the rim? Because you kind of suck at it.
And he had De'Aaron Fox, who is lightning fast. That gets up right into the grill of the opposition, right into the paint. Like, what I'm talking about is athletic guys and also athletic forwards, bro. The forwards that he had in Sacramento, a lot of them are very solid athletic guys, and they don't have that here.
Not really.
Not enough.
As I said, they need more length, they need more size, they need more quickness, everything involved. And then Charlotte Hornets, which was one of the other teams that was mentioned between the Knicks, the Grizzlies, and now the Hornets as possible trade destination was Towns. Knicks receive Trey Mann, Miles Bridges, Colin Sexton, and Tadjane Salon. I think that's how you say his name. The Hornets receive Karl Anthony Towns, Tyler Kolek, Guershon Yabusele, and Pacome Dadi. Donald, you can sound off in this trade as well.
No, I'm not having that. I don't want Miles Bridges in here. Sorry. I don't dislike Colin Sexton. I like Trey Mann. Don't know anything about that last guy, I'm afraid, but I do like Trey Mann. Sexton's a decent microwave scorer. It would lessen the need for what we're currently having with Clarkson. So I wouldn't hate that at all. But I don't like Miles Bridges, and I don't want that contract. And I don't think that moves us forward as a roster. So I'm all over the Magic, and I'm all over the Memphis consideration, and obviously Giannis. I'm not on board with the Hornets or the Trailblazers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm probably the lowest on this one as well, regarding that. But let's see. Let's see his reasoning for it. Why Charlotte does it. Um, if Cat gives Lamelo a true offensive partner, fixes their spacing overnight, this is a reset that gives their roster offensive clarity. Knicks do it for the sake of scoring, athleticism, creation, and upside. Sexton pressures the rim, man creates. Solon is a long term swing at center. But his final verdict is: I would do Memphis, I would do Orlando, not Charlotte. I cannot stomach
Oh yeah,
Bridges
we're
as a
all on
Knick.
the same page.
And the center position remains in flux as in his week post trade. So
Now, this Giannis situation is something that obviously has to be discussed.
yes,
Bobby Portis says that he's taking it day by day, Giannis, right?
Yeah.
Which says to me that Giannis is seriously considering moving at the deadline.
I wouldn't
Right.
be shocked.
I mean, if you're saying the words taking it day by day, that means that if anything happens to piss him off within the next week or two, then he's going to ask for a trade. Unfortunately, a lot of the recent reports are saying the Knicks would lose a battle because we just don't have the draft capital. If it was a bidding war for Giannis, we would lose because we just don't have the draft capital. Thanks, Leon. But here's one thing that could happen. If Giannis just says, I want to be a Knick, right? Exclusive negotiating window with the Knicks. Kind of similar to what we had with Donovan Mitchell. We had an exclusive window and we failed. It's all worked out. But hopefully with Giannis, we'd get an exclusive window and we could pull off a trade. It'd be very simple, actually. To be honest, it's just a straight swap. Karl Anthony Towns and Giannis, a couple of filler contracts. There's no one I wouldn't give up for Giannis. Whatever picks required, do it. And if you need to bring in a third team to make it happen, do it. So maybe that could happen. But another way you could do it is I'm still trading Towns before the deadline.
Yeah, of course.
If you can, but if you get some guys, like if you follow the Memphis trade or the Magic trade, you get guys that are valuable, that have upside. They will be interesting in a trade package for Giannis in the summer.
I was going to say also it extends your window a little bit.
It
It buys time. That's what it does. And again, it's not like those guys are bad players, but going back to the Memphis trade, which Lee explained in one of his articles, he's like, this flashy, and Donald, you said it, and just in different terms, this flashy offensive experiment failed. This recenters the Knicks' identity to defense. That doesn't mean you can't have a top offense, because out of all the years, right, you look back, I would say the past 10 years, there's been only one team, that has had a top 10 offense, but not a top 10 defense. That has won a championship. That was the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic. Everybody else, top 10 offense, top 10 defense. Right now, we're far out of the realms defensively.
No.
Far out of the realms.
Aren't we the worst defensive team in the NBA apart from the Utah Jazz since the NBA Cup?
Arguably, yes. Arguably.
Statistically, I believe we are.
We're pretty damn close.
I think we've got the 29th defensive rating since the
Cup. I think so, unfortunately. Maybe even since the new year. But that's horrible. Yeah. But going back to what Lee was saying, his projected lineup would be Brunson, KCP, Bridges, Anunoby, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Your bench unit is Josh Hart, Jordan Clarkson, Deuce McBride, Jalen Wells, and Mitchell Robinson. I like that very much, especially if Wells provides some upside. Orlando, your lineup would be Brunson, Suggs, Bridges, Anunoby, and Carter. Your bench unit is McBride, Clarkson, Hart, Bidatze at size at the 4, possibly play the 5, and Mitchell Robinson. Would love that. But great trades by Lee Escobedo. And I mentioned earlier, he was a big guy that was very much in on Karl Anthony Towns this year, and he was going to be the one that was maximized. But he's like, dude, I'm out. There's no way that this 1 through 5 pairing, pairing of Jalen Brunson, and you can bring up all the analytics of on-off impact. But I'm sorry, like sometimes the statistics do not reflect what's being seen out of the court. I respect the guys that look heavy into the analytics. I've said this multiple times before. It's not calling anybody out, but the statistics, whether you look at it from an offensive perspective or whatever, they just don't reflect what's going on in the court right now. Carl thinks it does it like the statistics do not reflect the analytics don't reflect effort. They don't reflect toughness. They don't reflect chemistry. There's obviously none there. Here's what you do. You go back essentially to Jalen, and this is as I said, this is an egalitarian supposed to be team and system ran by Mike Brown. You make that, you still have that egalitarian mindset with whoever you trade for, the Memphis package, the Orlando package. You still have that mindset. Brunson is the sole creator, but if you add a guy like Suggs, he's a secondary creator. You add a guy like maybe even Sexton, obviously you wouldn't do the Miles Bridges trade, add a secondary creator. So you're giving him help. That's what you want to do. You don't want to completely just give him no help, but you want to give Jalen Brunson as much defensive help as possible, because at minimum you want to have, or at maximum you want to have at least one weak defender, or at least max that out.
Right. No, I'd like a much more versatile roster. Yeah, I just don't think we can win with Karl Anthony Towns. I think his personality is too pernickety. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think he's already poisoned the well. And I think Mike Brown's added to it as well. Like they both combined to poison that well, and it's filtered into the locker room. And once it's in, you can't get it out unless you make a serious move to clean up that water. I'm sorry, it's infiltrated that fucking locker room, and it needs to be fixed ASAP. So when I recently saw a report that the Knicks are going to try and keep the whole roster together, I put my head in my hands and I was like, oh no, please don't let that be true. I hope that's not true.
You can't, dude. You can't. This is it's not like, oh, it's a losing streak. Oh, it's January. Dude, this is like this could be a very massive free fall. The Knicks could go from like second in the East to possibly, you're looking at playing, you're looking at the back end of the top 6 seeds. Like we're gonna be so bad in a spot if we don't do something immediately. Like Jonathan Macri said it, like, first of all, he mentioned the Mikal Bridges trade. It wasn't so much the 5 first-round picks, opportunity cost. I loved what he said. Opportunity cost. A guy like Giannis. But he also mentioned that obviously that the team is broken in some sort of thing. But he's like, there's no trade I wouldn't do right now. Although I wouldn't trade for a guy like Anthony Davis. I'm sorry, I'm not touching that.
No, that I agree. Yeah.
I'm not touching Miles Bridges, but those similar packages of role, like, again, you don't want to trade talent for just role players. You want some draft picks filled in, whatnot, but you want guys who fit the system, who are a little bit quick, but are going to help you win and possibly extend your window. That's the idea. But the whole Giannis thing is like that's going to be a fastball that's right down the middle of the plate. You either take it for strike 3 or you hit a home run with it. That's the whole thing with Giannis. And me and Dylan brought that up in our collaboration. We basically said Giannis is the move, and if not, you're missing out. This is not Donovan Mitchell. This is not Russell Westbrook. This is not Damian Lillard. Not in any of those trades. This is your decision now. You are in a win now window. Time to maximize it. You figure out later.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of, in terms of basketball, things that need to be figured out, because you need to get more shooters around him. Because obviously you're taking away a shooter and a perimeter shooter at that. So, but he would be the one that theoretically would be the bully ball guy in that paint, drive in the paint and kick. You need some shooters, so you need better shooters. But you can build that, you can add that moving on. But that is something that we need to pay attention to. It's an absolute no-brainer. But it doesn't need to be Giannis or bust, because I think that if you make smart moves, I believe you can win a championship with Jalen Brunson and a really good core of excellent basketball players. I do believe that. Um, and that's what they need to focus on, in my opinion. It's not worked between him and Towns. I don't think they like each other. I don't think Brunson likes Towns. It seems pretty obvious to me. I mean, I'm no expert, but they don't have any chemistry on the court. They clearly don't have any chemistry off the court. And I don't think Brunson respects him. Because how could you respect someone who doesn't take their job seriously? And it's very obvious that Towns doesn't take his job seriously. That's why I would have benched him as soon as he sat out that Kings game, right on that bench. You not talked about this? You heard my thoughts. What were your thoughts on him just sitting on the court while the action happened for almost a full NBA minute?
Oh, I said that in my one of my more recent videos, I think. I was like, that was absolutely reprehensible. Now, I don't know if I said that I would have benched him, but I would have. I would have absolutely benched him. That is reprehensible. Just sitting down like, let me just chill while we're playing 4-on-5 defensively, not offensively. But again, it speaks to just the lack. Again, speaks to lack of dynamics, speaks to lack of effort at Towns. These are just things you can't measure in a stat sheet. He's a great player when he decides to play, but this is something you can't have. Like God forbid the Knicks just decide to sit out the deadline, say, you know what, we're going to let this thing ride. What happens when it spills into the offseason? Like somebody on the team's like, hey, I don't F with this dude. I want to trade. Like you don't want that. You don't want that. Towns is not a winning basketball player. I said that on the Pistons stream, and the Knicks got to get rid of him. I'm sorry. You know, I gave him a chance. I was fair. I was objective. I gave him as much time.
Yeah.
I gave him as much time as possible, but I was like, dude, this stuff, like the softest of matchups, right? You go back to the Bucks game early in the season, he couldn't post up Kyle Kuzma. He couldn't post up Precious Achiuwa.
That was when he was.
He couldn't post up Precious Achiuwa in that Kings game. All just weak. Layups. Just weak. Just a weak player. Listen, let him go somewhere else, dude. He's obviously not meant for winning basketball. I don't care that he's CAA. I don't care where he went to college. I don't care that he's from freaking Jersey. I don't care. This dude has got to go. It has nothing to do with emotion. Has nothing to do with any of that. The sake of this locker room could just go down even further. We haven't exactly hit rock bottom yet. We could get there though, and I don't want to get there. But you got to get rid of him. And then I'll say this: if you get rid of him, he might be the biggest problem, but there's other problems to fix. Mikal Bridges, stop being soft. OG Anunoby, stop being soft. Attack the basket. You have a weak matchup on you, you go right at them. Right? That's what you got to do. I think it mends the locker room a little bit if Towns gets traded, but that doesn't mean we should be turning the lights off on the rest of the core who are complaining about their roles. So that's what I got to say, bud.
But yeah, I was worried that there was some rumors. There has been some reports that the Knicks would prefer to keep the whole roster intact. That's an L. That is a dramatic L if that happens. And it worries me because it reminds me a little bit of Brian Cashman if that happens. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be doubling down on your own mistake.
Yeah.
It would be doubling down on your mistake. It would be silly. That could cost him his job, realistically, if that was possible. That could cost him his job. For the sake of opportunity cost, you trade Towns, you trade Phillip for players, and then you get Giannis or whatever. But not trading Towns, who is arguably the biggest issue on this team.
Oh, yes, yeah. And the thing that worries me is the whole Leon Rose aspect to this, because Leon Rose, I don't know how objective Leon Rose is regarding Karl Anthony Towns. He's been trying to get him for years. He was his agent, wasn't he? They were certainly involved in the same agency at CAA. They have very close ties, and that's why he wanted Towns in the building. Will he be objective enough to take a step back and say, Towns ain't it, he got to go? Will he be objective with that That's what worries me because I I don't know how objective Leon Rose is, because if he was, I don't think he would have made the trade in the first place,
Mm.
because Towns just wasn't it. That wasn't the move to make. That wasn't the move that puts you over the top for a championship. I think it was a sideways step. I don't think he was that much of an upgrade to what we already had, especially when you factor in DiVincenzo, let alone Randall. So I'm worried about that, and it reminds me a little bit of Brian Cashman, who just refuses to admit his mistakes, and now it's just personal at this point. He's got a personal friendship with Aaron Boone. He's got a personal friendship with guys like Cody Bellinger, and it's affecting his taking a step back and being like objective about it. And this and Anthony Volpe is the best example. You know, taking a step back and going, okay, these guys aren't working here. We need to move on. And if Leon Rose goes down the same path because he made that awful Mikal Bridges trade, he made that awful trade for Karl Anthony Towns, he had that awful signing of Yabusele. You know, he was the one that made that awful selection for Dadier. If he continues just to double down on his mistakes, it's going to be like Brian Cashman. And you ain't going to win a championship that way. He needs to be objective. He needs to take a step back and realize that he made a bunch of mistakes, and you gotta move them on.
Exactly. So we've ran about an hour 40 talking about this, but I'll let Donald. I just find.
Oh,
Ooh,
there we go.
that was weird. I want to say real quick before Donald gets his final thoughts. I know he gave some just recently, but I really hope this team does their soul searching. I know Josh Hart was talking about it, Jalen Brunson. I just want the talking to stop. I just want them to embody their actions. I hope Donald, if you don't know already, this is, I think, the second player only meeting this year, which is not good, which is not good at all. I really hope that this team finds some soul, they find their grit, they find their chemistry back that they once had, the magic. Again, it's obviously, you can say it's not about the regular season, about the playoffs, but what we're seeing here is not tantamount to winning whatsoever. What tantamount is winning is chemistry, toughness, all these different things, the system, which I think works. I think it brings out the best in players. I think Mike Brown could do a better job at certain things, but they gotta get rid of Karl Anthony Towns. That's the headliner, I think. That's the headliner. I don't think the way Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns goes about things could not be more different. Couldn't be more stark of a comparison. Jalen Brunson is more low key, silent energy. This, that, and the third. He's like, I take accountability for this, that, and the third. Josh Hart maybe at times too, but Karl Anthony Towns is like, nobody had to sacrifice more than me, and he's he's the definition of what's zesty. He's zesty. He's got an interesting energy about him. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, interesting is a good way of putting it.
Interesting energy, but they just don't match in terms of energy. They just don't match in terms of chemistry. They don't match in terms of play style. I mean, neither of them play defense. Towns is a wreck sometimes offensively. Brunson's more in control. But a move's got to get done, man. I don't want this ship to continue to sink. And as Donald said already, you cannot allow personal relationships to allow and get in the way of business. It can't happen. It can't, because it could end up costing you your job, and the opportunity cost it possibly winning a championship.
Yeah, exactly. My final thoughts are: there's too much player power in the NBA. I've been saying this for a long time.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it's filtering into the Knicks. There's just too much player power within this Knicks roster. They all need to shut up and get on with their jobs. Quite honestly, I don't care what their personal relationships are with Mike Brown. I don't care if they were friends with Tom Thibodeau or not. You're not supposed to be friends with your head coach. That's not the way it works. I know the Yankees hired Aaron Boone because they're all best pals. That's not how it's supposed to work.
It's not tantamount to winning.
You're supposed to respect your head coach, and you just get on with your job, because what you're representing is the name on the front of your uniform, regardless of the sport. In this instance, it's the Knicks. So Karl Anthony Towns going, well, I don't really like Mike Brown, so I'm just going to sit on the middle of this floor and give up. get out of town. Because it doesn't matter who your head coach is. If that's your attitude, that's the wrong attitude. It doesn't matter what town, but it's certainly not going to work in New York. Maybe get away with it in a smaller state and a smaller market, but it sure as hell not going to fly with the Knicks. All right. So if the Knicks tries to pretend that this isn't an issue, and then they just make a small trade with New Orleans and maybe bring in Alvarado or whatever, and then they're just saying, "Oh, we'll just do a little bit of tweak here to the bench," and then pretend that that's it. No, this is serious. This is a very serious problem. There is a very, very, very huge chemistry issue here. It's a problem. There's too many that are pointing fingers. There's too many that are giving up. I have never seen so many people give up like they did against the Mavericks. Everybody gave up. Nobody wanted to be on that court on Martin Luther King Day. That's sad. That's really pretty disgraceful. But regardless of the day, it's pretty disgraceful considering you're Madison Square Garden and you got fans that are paying $300-$400 a seat, and then their favorite players couldn't be bothered to show up because they just didn't want to play for their coach. Boo-hoo. You know what I'm saying? Boo-hoo. Anyone with that attitude can go, frankly. And that's why Jalen Brunson held that players-only meeting saying, quit blaming the coach for everything because this is about you. Mikal Bridges is about you. Deuce. By the way, Deuce saying, "Oh, I think we're just getting too complacent because of our winning."
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God, who are you, Deuce McBride? I know that you're getting a really good ride here with Knicks fans because we all love you, but bro, you've not earned enough in the league for you to talk like that. The Knicks have won nothing for you to earn that kind of talk. Going, "Oh, we're just so complacent with winning." You know who would have that attitude? Would maybe be the Denver Nuggets. They don't. You know, who has that attitude? You know, the OKC Thunder, they don't really have that attitude, do they? Because they're having a better statistical year than they had last year. They won it all last year. SGA won everything. Every single award last year, SGA won. He won the Finals MVP. He won the MVP. He won the scoring championship. And he won a championship. Is he going, you know what? I'm just bored of all this winning. I'm tired of all this winning. I'm chilling. Deuce McBride, who is a backup guard, is just like, we're all just complacent with all this winning. Sorry. Doesn't fly. Does not fly. There is a chemistry issue. I don't like a lot of these guys in this locker room. I don't associate with them. Because that's not a winning mentality. So they gotta do some serious work. I'm not saying trade Deuce, but someone needs to be in his ears going, "You can't say that. That's not acceptable. This is New York." Or freaking, this is basketball. You can't have that attitude. So shit needs to go down. People need to be moved on. A lot of people need to be moved on. You need to get this thing fixed, right? Maybe a championship this year is out of the question, but moving them in the right direction isn't out of the question. So let's do that.
Exactly. And I'm just saying, I'm not trying to like defend Deuce, but was he possibly hinting at that about other people in the locker room?
Maybe.
Is that a possibility? I mean, I hope he wasn't talking
but
about
he was pretty vocal about Tom Thibodeau last year as well.
He was. You're absolutely right. He was.
I wonder if there's something going on there. I don't get it, man. I think that there's just a chemistry issue. Full stop. I don't know who it is individually. I put a lot of this on Towns and Bridges, but it could be the lesser players. God knows, but it's a problem.
Well, I have there's three possible solutions to this issue. So TK, our good buddy, suggested on Twitter yesterday that something needs to happen after the Dallas game, whether chairs are being thrown, somebody has to get upset, called out, whatever. But I gave three solutions. Number one, let's pull up I'm going to pull up on my end at least. Let's see, because I have three solutions of what could possibly happen. Number one, We need either a priest or whoever religious to bless the MSG floor.
Exorcist.
I was gonna say number 2, exorcism, or number 3, we hash out our problems like the Indians did in Major League 2, where we see a huge fight on the bench, everybody fighting each other, and then everything magically gets better after that. You'll see.
I mean, I'd prefer it to what the Yankees do. They all just have a good cry and share. Let's not do that. Let's be men about it.
I was gonna say, because it could be like Brunson versus Towns or Towns versus Mike Brown is like the main card that I would pay to see that in a joking fashion. Obviously, I wouldn't want them to.
Brunson would have him in his ass. I know he's 7 foot, but Towns is a big zesty softy. He'll fall on his ass.
Yeah, he'll kick him right in the gut, and Towns would just fall instantly. Bridges would fight somebody, but regardless, the point is the Knicks need to solve this. The Knicks need to solve the problems. Can't delay the inevitable. Got to make tough decisions. A lot of uncomfortable conversations. But if you guys have lasted almost the whole 2 hours, if you guys haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so when I go live or drop a new video. Donald's links are down below. I will be on Kron's tomorrow with Donald for this. I believe there's some new hot stove stuff that came out from Jack Curry regarding the Yankees at Bellinger. That's going to be interesting to talk about. So please check me out at obviously Knicks Cast on Twitter, and also check us out tomorrow, 10:15, I believe, around where we're going to have another episode of the Pinstripe Chronicles. So check us out. As I said, continue to share and support. Appreciate every single one of you, and we will talk to y'all later. So see y'all later. Y'all have a good night.
Go Knicks.